Hello and welcome to Forgotten Frights. I am Josh and I'm sitting here with Adam.
Hi.
Today on the podcast, we are reviewing the 1963 horror anthology Twice Told Tales, directed by Sidney Salkow and starring Vincent Price, Sebastian Cabot, Brett Hayes, Beverly Garland, and Jacqueline deWit. Here's the trailer.
From the vivid imagination of that master storyteller of the macabre, Nathaniel Hawthorne,
Alice!
Comes Twice Told Tales, a trio of terrifying experiences, brilliantly portrayed by that personification of all evil on the screen, Vincent Price. In this tomb, you will live a pulse-quickening adventure as two friends dabble in the black arts, and a secret buried in the grave returns to haunt two unfaithful lovers.
You died, Sylvia. Been dead for 38 years.
In this garden of evil unfolds the diabolic delineation of the most fantastic horror conceived by a distorted mind.
Since my father made me what I am, he used its poisons to change the chemistry of my blood. Watch that poor creature die. You would die if you touched me.
In this house of seven gables, filled with the brooding mystery of an ancient curse, its very walls creaking with evil, a chilling tale of vengeance casts a spell of horror beyond belief.
That was his blood. The Pynchons are cursed. Every male member of the family has died the same way.
That was the frightening trailer to Twice Told Tales. I almost said the Haunted Palace because we were just talking about it.
Yes.
I mean, both films have Vincent Price. And both films conclude with a house burning down or falling apart.
That seems to be a go-to.
Yeah, something I was going to bring up. How's it going, Adam? It's been a little bit since we've gotten together to podcast, and we just sat through about 45 minutes of me trying to get this worked out here.
It's good. Things are good. It's the festive season. A little cold outside, but we're supposed to have 45 degrees and rain tomorrow. So,
oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's going to be sloppy.
Oh, that's going to be a wet, wintry day.
Yep, for sure.
But we're getting hammered with snow. It seems like definitely this year we're getting a lot more snow than we had last year. Because if I remember right, this time last year it was just kind of cold and brisk.
Yeah, I feel like it was for the last few years. It's been maybe 39, 42 degrees on Christmas Day, gray, no snow, and yeah, we got a pretty decent 3-4 inches very early in December. So
yeah. I think with Twice Told Tales, I almost wonder if we could have done some kind of scary winter films, but maybe we'll have to put that on the docket for next time.
For sure. Oh yeah.
And try to figure out what that would even look like. Twice Told Tales and the other one we watched, Rituals, are I don't know. Twice Told Tales feels very autumn to me, and then the other one is just like spring, summer, but we'll get to that one.
Yeah.
Regardless, we're talking about Twice Told Tales today. Are you familiar with where these stories came from with the author Nathaniel Hawthorne?
I'd like to say yes, but no, I don't have a real understanding of Nathaniel Hawthorne's writing. I did pick up from this movie my complete knowledge of Nathaniel Hawthorne, this movie, that he if the movie is any conjunction to his actual writing, it's very layered material. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in all of these stories, but no, from what I understand, very Old English, probably too hard to read for my dumb brain.
I think so. Hawthorne and Faulkner are two kind of blind spots for me in literature. I don't really know them. From what I have gathered from Hawthorne and what I've read before, The House of Seven Gables, I guess, it seems to be the film we watched is a very loose adaptation of kind of the themes and things that Hawthorne typically touches on. And I'm probably, it would be erroneous to state that he was one of a romantic era writer, but it seems like he was far more, I should say he was less gothic than anything. And I think they were just, maybe it was like, what is that film? Kind of like a Roger Corman, well, even Haunted Palace, where they were just kind of reaching for material they could put together, like Rappaccini's Daughter and what's the other one? Dr. It's the first segment. What is it? Dr. Heidegger's Experiment.
Yes.
That one.
Yeah.
Where they were just looking for things that were like, oh, this could be spooky.
And, I have to say, you mentioned the romantic aspect. I felt like this one was way more, and it's saying something when you say this Vincent Price movie is too melodramatic. But I feel like, as much of a mark as I am for Vincent Price and all things Gothic horror, this was a slow one for me. Like all three of these shorts, or this anthology in general, it was very, very, very romantic, very lost love, very, it was plotting in a way.
Yeah, one of the definitely something I'd like to touch on as we get going with these segments. Sorry, I have a cat. My cat, his real name is Poe. It's not Rainbow Friends.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I thought it was Rainbow Friends.
No, his name is Poe. Called him Rainbow Friends. So yeah. I think there's a good contrast between the two names. He is just like, he's never down here. He's always upstairs sleeping on the cat bed. And because we're down here, he's just playing as loudly as he can on the floor. Some ominous.
Maybe he's drawn to the spooky podcast.
I think that's what it is. Yep. He's like the Edgar Allan Poe in him.
Yeah.
He's trying to,
but the playfulness of the Rainbow Friends.
Yes. So anyway, yeah, I think with kind of definitely the romantic aspect of this anthology, because we've seen some before, and some of the ones I will eventually post for this podcast. We've done Black Sabbath, and what were some of the other ones we've done? We did. Is that the Black Cat? Oh, it has that one in there, I should say. The segment the Black Cat is in. Not Black Sabbath, but the other one.
Tales of Terror?
Tales of Terror.
Was that it?
Yep. So this one is definitely not like those at all.
The Tales of Terror, that was the one with Peter Lorre and Vincent Price. Correct?
That's the one.
The wine tasting.
With the wine tasting.
Oh,
and that's
tremendous.
The Black Cat, I think, is
I think so. Yeah. Yep. I think a lot of stories were hodgepodged. Like they mined a lot of those stories and kind of put them all.
Yeah.
They used a lot of them in the same story. Like
the Haunted Palace, in fact, is I believe the title comes from an Edgar Allan Poe short story, and yet it uses a lot of ideas from H.P. Lovecraft, including that the monster at the end, the kind of not Daggett, but the Cthulhu like
the thing in the pit, yeah.
And then the people who are like the not Dunwich, but the city of fish people.
Yes, Innsmouth, yeah.
So so kind of in getting to back to Twice Told Tales, we definitely have, they've harvested some source material from Hawthorne, and in this way, this seems like it should be Roger Corman.
Very much.
It definitely should be a Roger Corman like Edgar Allan Poe trilogy. It's not, but there are a lot of similarities. Yep. And I think this, something I read was just focusing on the horror boom of the 1960s and anthologies. And I guess I'll put quotes on it, like moral tales,
Yeah.
Don't be a drunk. Don't beat your wife. Don't be a rascal. Don't be, don't murder people. Because the 1960s, they needed the Aesop's fables reintroduced, I guess, to society. Must have been something in the zeitgeist of proper attitudes toward humanity.
And all of that should be prefaced with men don't do these things, because I know we mention it a lot, but the women in these stories are so just
it is very the patriarchy is alive and well in these films.
Yeah.
And I think we did we did Crack the World, which
Crack in the World.
Yeah, Crack the World sounds way cooler. It sounds like a Iron Maiden song.
It does. Yeah.
And it should. It should be titled Crack the World. Yeah. But it's science fiction horror, but it's still the same. You've got strong scientist, intelligent man, and the damsel in distress, even though, it's just the rough grabbing of the shoulders and the jostling, that very sexist.
Calm
attitude.
down. Yeah.
Yes. And so and I guess a good thing to tie that to with Twice Told Tales is this romantic idea. It is a very romantic movie, and I'm going to put that in quotes because it's romantic in the way that there's a lot of the patriarchy there, and a lot of I guess the old attitudes toward a woman's place. But why don't we get into the first segment, because we can kind of talk about this and include this as we go. So the movie opens with narration from Edgar Allan Poe, and I was actually hoping to look up what that narration was. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
What's narration from Vincent Price?
Not Edgar Allan Poe, or not even Poe. Sorry,
was it Hawthorne?
Poe's on the Brain. I think it's just like Vincent Price narration. He was like, I have
off the cuff. He comes in. I have something to say.
I have some ideas. So he's got interludes of narration, and if we think back to like the movie Black Sabbath, they kind of had the interludes of Boris Karloff introducing. Was that Karloff? Yeah, wasn't that Karloff in Sabbath? Or was that?
I think Karloff was in Sabbath, but I also remember there was one with John Carradine, where every time they would go to a new story, it was just a shot of John Carradine standing like, now this one's scary too.
Which, I appreciate. And I think that's kind of, so I think that's what this one's missing, is maybe it just cuts back to Vincent Price and he's like, spooky, huh?
Told you.
Yeah, right. I think we definitely Boris Karloff. He will be until we see better. He was just the king of that movie of being like, pretty creepy story, huh? You got goosebumps? I told you it was gonna happen, and you're scared. So
don't come crying to me.
The movie opens with this narration, which is what I was looking for. Throughout the ages, the heavens have unleashed their fury to make man tremble in the presence of the unknown. Tie that to whatever theme is going on.
Pretty vague.
As it goes on. And as a man has witnessed the power of nature's elements, so have some men sought desperately in this infinite power the secret of why they are born and why they will die. It continues. While the very ground on which they walk, the earth that will bury them, remains to mock their existence. So that brings us to that first segment, Dr. Heidegger's experiment, and we have Vincent Price and
Sebastian Cabot.
Sebastian Cabot playing Carl, and then Vincent Price is playing Vincent.
Mr.
Price.
Yeah, Mr. I forget his name.
Yeah. So he's there anyway. Let me see. I have it pulled up here, so I might as well do it. We'll go that far. So Alex. Vincent Price is playing a guy named Alex.
Yes. Alex and Carl.
Yes. His name. I mean, I probably mentioned this before, but Vincent Price's name should always be like Mr. Spookly or Mr. Scaryton, something to that effect. So anyway, they're talking, and it looks like, we've got Carl Heidegger. He would be the titular character. It's his 79th birthday, they're kind of talking, they're old friends, and they're kind of wistfully going through their lives and how they, they've done so many great experiments and have been such good friends.
And they're both old. They're both
old. Yes. He's 79, so I would assume Alex Vincent Price's character is around that age.
Yeah.
Because they're both they have gray hair. They move around as though they have youthful, as if both actors simply are wearing makeup. They're quite spry.
Yeah.
But beside the point, they end up talking about Sylvia, who was played by Marie Blanchard, it looks like, and she has died 38 years prior. She was the fiance of Carl, and she died
the night before their wedding.
Their wedding
was supposed to.
And there's a horrible storm while this is going on as they're reminiscing and doing this sort of thing. I don't know if it's lightning, thunder, the storm itself, but she's buried on the premises
in the backyard,
in a crypt.
Yeah.
And they look out the window and the crypt door has fallen off. And I think Carl says, "Oh, look at the crypt."
And before that, this, the way that you just described this, Josh, it went through pretty quickly. This takes a little while. They're really going back and forth. And at one point, it kind of feels like Alex is telling Carl, you could have got so much more play, brother. And then Carl's like, there was only one woman for me.
Yeah.
And then Alex says something that's, a little too risque. And then that's where the thunder or the lightning strike hits.
And this plays later. This plays into a shocking revelation that we have.
Yes. Yeah. But Carl is very sad that he lost his the love of his life almost 40 years ago, and he's still ruminating about it in this moment. And then the lightning strikes, and they see that the crypt door is open.
And they go to the crypt. They go inside. He wants to see her again. Is that right? If I remember that,
I kind of missed why they were
started grave robbing.
Because they went to move the coffin. They went to move the coffin because there was water dripping on the coffin, and apparently that was okay. Look, and I know that I'm supposed to suspend disbelief and just get into the story, but the door comes open on that coffin, or I'm sorry, the crypt. Carl marches into this place that he has not been inside for 40 years.
Right.
He does not look around like, whoa, I haven't been in this room for 40 years. He just marches right over to the casket.
That's right.
He's like, light those candles. He's like, wait, there's candles still standing. It's just, I don't know. It's just okay, got to get to work.
I kind of chalk this up to that. There's a lot of, when you get into those, the seaside Gothic castles, and you have just I guess there's everything is still set where it is, but it's just covered in cobwebs.
Yeah.
It's just kind of I
get it.
It's the happenstance of that. And I don't know if, is that something that was, is that just set dressing, or is that something, do you typically have, what is that, a candelabra?
Candelabra everywhere. Yeah.
In a crypt? Is that just something?
There were several. There were a lot of candelabras.
Because I think what torches on the wall are kind of that's the cliche thing, right?
I think about it from my standpoint. If I visited a place 20 years ago and then I revisited that place, there would be a flood of whoa, I was here 20 years ago. And he's just marching around let's get this casket.
Let's move this out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the storm, or maybe it was before, I think the storm kind of broke a crack in the ceiling, water's dripping in.
I don't know.
Or it was just there, because it's never really
discussed. When they start to take the coffin off of its perch, the lid falls off, and the wife's the deceased wife's, I forget her name, Sylvia.
Yeah.
Sylvia is exposed, and she looks fine. She's she looks like she hasn't been rotting for 40 years.
Yeah, she looks like she did 38 years ago. She looks young.
But the inside of the casket is wet from water that was dripping from the ceiling. So I'm assuming that it has been dripping on her for 38 years. Maybe I'm wrong.
And none of it just entered her mouth accidentally and brought her back to life.
She didn't look visibly moist. She looked, they just said that the inside of the casket was wet.
It's damp.
So I don't know if, again, I don't know.
I don't know how that works. I don't know what the science is here.
Right. Yeah. You have to be laying in a waterbed full of it or something.
Yeah, right. It would seem like I don't know whether the coffin should be.
I mean, as we go forward, it doesn't make a lot of sense because of how they have to,
Yeah. So because for whatever reason they conclude she looks young. Water's been dripping on her. Therefore, water must be a de-aging solution. They take some of the water. Carl puts it on a dead rose. The rose comes back to life. Aha. Yes. Now we have it, right?
Yep.
We are now going to drink some of this water to be young again. And Carl and Alex, they discuss this. And Alex is like, no, this is a terrible idea. We don't. He's very obsessed with the idea that this water is from the devil. And so he's like, no, this is demonic. Carl drinks it anyway in kind of a neat visual. He's in the mirror and he becomes young again, and then convinces Vincent Price by kind of flattering him and saying, you were the most handsome person I've ever seen when you were young. Now you're old and ugly, I guess.
And I feel like Sebastian Cabot, Carl, after he drinks it, he goes from like 47 years old to 39.
Yes. So I wanted to bring this up. How does the water know what young is? Do you know what I mean? Like, yes. So why does he drink it and turn 38 years or get to being whatever it is, 38 years?
Right.
It doesn't make any, shouldn't depending on the amount you drink, he should be like a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. What if they're like,
he's like 13 and Vincent Price is like 37.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
have a spin-off cartoon called Hawthorne Babies.
Yes. A truly creepy experience. So anyway, they become young again, and then Carl gets the idea, let's bring Sylvia back to life. And he's going to do this by injecting her with the water. So that's why I don't know. She's in the casket, she becomes young again. I just don't know why injecting it into her veins, her bloodstream. She doesn't, you know what I mean? I think we're supposed to suspend belief, and that's okay.
Yep.
But if you scrutinize it even for like a minute, everything starts to fall.
Oh yeah. A lot of holes.
She comes back to life. They're very happy. They're very excited. They have to tell her it's been 38 years. She's kind of broken up about that. Carl then says, let me go get your wedding dress, and we can do this like we were supposed to. And he disappears. Now the shocking revelation. Alex, Vincent Price's character, and Sylvia were having an affair.
Yes.
And one of the many things with this movie, Carl comes down the stairs with the wedding dress and hears them talking. There's a lot of that going on in this movie.
There is a lot of listening.
A lot of people listening from around the corner and just being, happenstance, being at the right place at the right time. Vincent Price, grabs her by the shoulders and throttles her in a 1960s fashion. And then they make out. Carl then comes in pretending like he didn't hear them talking, singles out Vincent Price and confronts him because this is a segment and they got to move the plot along fairly quickly. This has all happened in the span of like an hour. He's cutting an apple with an apple knife, pulls that knife. Vincent Price and Carl struggle. I should say Alex and Carl struggle. And Carl is killed. Vincent Price wrestles the knife and turns the knife on him. He is killed. Now, while they're struggling, Sylvia's come around the corner and is screaming because Carl gets stabbed. And then as Vincent Price watches Carl die, he's like, oh, my friend. And he turns around and Sylvia is Carl
reverts back to 47.
Yes, he de-ages when he dies. I don't understand why that happens because she was dead and she de-aged, but it doesn't matter. So I think it's because the serum wore off, is what he said.
It was just happenstance that it all happened at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he turned around and in the wedding dress, Sylvia's standing there and she's a corpse, but she's like a skeleton.
Yes.
And then she like crumbles and falls apart. And then Vincent Price becomes old again. And for the last part of the segment, he just kind of like walks around the house.
Well, he goes back to the crypt to grab water.
Oh yes, that's right.
Out of the ceiling, and the ceiling has stopped dripping water. And once and again, maybe you're right. Maybe the lightning broke it put a crack in the world.
Oh, there
and
you go.
then the water was dripping down. But I just feel like it never explained it. So it feels like the water's been dripping for 40 years at least. And now it's just gone.
Yeah. I don't know. Poetic justice, I guess.
I guess.
I do like the way I remembered it. Just a smidge better is that Vincent Price just walks around the house for like 5 minutes and then the segment ends, which is the way I remembered it. I guess that's not the case. Regardless, that segment ends, and then we move on to the second segment's narration. I was just looking for it on the script. I don't know if I have it. The script they have on here is all kind of chunked together. Let me see if I can pull this one up real quick. Maybe. No, that doesn't look right. There's a picture of Sebastian Cabot's face. Not accurate. Regardless, there's an interlude, and Vincent Price has some more things that are,
vaguely spooky.
Vaguely spooky. Let's see if I can scroll down here.
Sebastian Cabot, by the way, I remember him as the voice of Bagheera in the Jungle Book.
Oh, I don't see. He looked familiar to me, so maybe I've seen him in another older film.
Probably,
I know the name for sure.
Yep.
So that's not lost on me, but certainly looked familiar. And then I think I've seen the Jungle Book like once.
Might have been the narrator in the Winnie the Pooh movie by Disney as well.
Oh, okay. All right. We get to story 2, segment 2, Rappaccini's Daughter, which is a title I say all the time out loud in my house when I'm walking around. It's just Rappaccini's Daughter because it just rolls off the tongue. This one is features. Let me go pull up the names here. We've got Giacomo Rappaccini, Vincent Price. I should say Vincent Price plays Giacomo Rappaccini. And then we have his daughter, Beatrice, who's played by Joyce Taylor. And then a university student, Giovanni, who's played by Brett Halse, I should say. And more or less, you've got Rappaccini's daughter is in a garden. The university student, Giovanni, he sees her, falls in love, is smitten. He can't go into the garden. She won't let him.
But they speak. He's up. He's got an apartment or something.
Yeah.
On the second floor, so he'll talk to her out the window.
Yes.
So he's in the window and she's on the ground, and they're smitten and they're talking back and forth.
And then just to the right of that is Vincent Price leaning and listening,
and his hand is grasping the side of the wall a little bit. His eyes are very. It's perfect.
He's got a great. It's conniving, but
conniving. He looks like he's worried that he's listening. Yeah. He's just
might be caught. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
And so a lot of the story is just kind of a back and forth of our Giovanni, seemingly the protagonist of the story, trying to or is just pining for Beatrice's love, Vincent Price's daughter, her rebuking him and saying, this can't happen. Strange stuff going on. More or less, we come to find out that Vincent Price has chemically engineered or biochemically engineered his daughter to be poison because he couldn't stand to have her heart broken.
I think it's more of he's possessive, and again, I think it's another bad look for this time where it's just like, young lady, you can't be trusted to do what you want to do, so I'm going to make the decision for you.
Okay.
And he's got this wild looking plant that he wears like leather horse gloves around, and he's just like, and
they're so bad. They're like elbow high gloves. They're the biggest gloves I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So Rappaccini, Vincent Price, his wife had run away years earlier. So then he infused his daughter with a plant extract that makes her touch deadly. And so he does this to keep her safe from unwanted suitors.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what he did.
So I didn't realize, just looking it up and trying to refresh myself, that the college professor used to teach Rappaccini, and then he became a recluse. So that makes more sense now in hindsight, that the professor that Giovanni goes to see often used to teach Rappaccini, and it's like, oh, he's a weird dude. Stay away from that guy and his daughter. Rappaccini, his daughter more or less is like, I want to be in love and you're holding me hostage. You're doing this sort of thing. And, I'm in love with Giovanni and he wants me and we're going to run away and do all this. Rappaccini takes it upon himself to get Giovanni in his room with him or in his house with him, ply him with alcohol, which turns out to be some kind of sleeping agent.
He put a lot of that sleeping agent in a little brandy glass.
I did not see it.
It was no, I didn't see it either. But the point is that it was a tiny brandy glass.
Yeah.
He takes a sip and he's like, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night.
Yeah,
and he just passes out.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any brandy in the glass.
It might have just been all sleeping agents.
That's all it was.
He's like, it's absinthe. It would be funny if they cut over and Vincent Price had like a bag of like flour, but like that was like the sleeping agent. It was like that big and just like pouring it into the glass. Cause he takes like one sip, Giovanni does, and he's like out.
Yeah. And before that, he had his daughter, Beatrice, get a couple of earlier. Rappaccini tried to get Mr. Rappaccini tried to get the
doctor.
Some of the doctor, excuse me. He didn't go to evil doctor school to be called Mr. But he was trying to get some of the weird plant so that he could make more of the poison elixir that I don't know. But he tried to grab the plant with his gloved hands and it started burning his hands. So his daughter just did it no problem, barehanded.
Yeah.
But that's how he made the tincture to give Giovanni.
Yes, in order to convert him into because they talk about, I think they say the word radioactive.
I didn't hear that.
So I'm like, I don't know what this is exactly. I know what sources are telling me it's a plant extract, but there's like glowing things and smoking things and things turning blue. So it seems to be some kind of like, I don't know. If it was radioactive, it would make perfect sense to me. But Giovanni is turned into one of these.
He's infused. Yeah.
He's infused with the plant tincture, if you will. And then he goes to see his professor, tells him what's going on. The professor says, well, I think I can make something to counteract this. It might not work. I think Giovanni at this point, and so is Beatrice, are like, who cares? Very Romeo and Juliet, we will die with our love. And that's exactly what they do. Giovanni shows up in the garden, confronts them, and drinks this whatever chemical that was given to him by the professor. And instead of saving him, it kills him. Rappaccini yells at his daughter a little bit more, and then she drinks it. She also dies. And then Rappaccini takes off the elbow-length gloves and like connecting a circuit, grabs two parts of one of the plants that were out in the garden, and he starts glowing blue
for a long
time.
Yeah.
He starts smoking.
Yeah.
And then he dies.
Yep.
And then at the very end, Vincent Price narration is like,
see,
I told you, right? And that ends segment 2. Anything you wanted to add about Rappaccini's daughter?
No, we covered it pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we can leave that one where it is. All right. And then the last one is The House of Seven Gables. This one is very stock, like ghost story. It's a very Vincent Price story. You've got Vincent Price and his wife show up. I almost said daughter. Might be more accurate. But Gerald Pynchon, who's Price, he returns to his family house after 17 years with his wife, Alice. His sister, Hannah, is there, who's played by Jacqueline deWit. Alice is played by Beverly Garland. And he comes back in order to discover money or treasure that was left there.
I believe it's treasure.
And that kind of sets the stage for all the things that happen. Now, his wife, Alice, who is, I would say, like the innocent one of the story, she begins to experience like odd things in the house.
Yes.
She starts seeing a ghost. And then another suitor shows up. I think, I don't think I'm explaining this as well as I should be.
The suitor, yeah, he's, I feel like he was another 40, 50-year-old guy who was trying to play like a 20-year-old.
Yeah. But I think, and we can get to him as well. There's a curse was put on the family, it was a curse put on the Pynchon men by Matthew Mall, who owned the house. Apparently lost it to them in some kind of quote unquote shady deal, and then so John Mall, who is a descendant of Matthew, that's the guy who shows up that you're talking about. He's the new suitor to Alice. He refuses Vincent Price's offer to give him the house because Vincent Price wants the exchange, or he wants the treasure, and so does his sister. Excuse me. We see a painting at one point. Is like bleeding. A portrait is, and Vincent Price and his sister are like, "Oh yeah, that's spooky. He's trying to get at us before we find the treasure." Now this kind of it's just a slow descent into madness, more or less. They eventually find the body of Matthew Mall in the basement, or the skeletal remains.
I think so.
And I forgot to say something, and I want to say it now. But is that interstitial, the in between of each story, it cuts to a book while you have Vincent Price's narration, right. And there are like dollar store level skeleton arms on the book turning the pages. Yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
I liked it.
I enjoyed it.
But and I believe it was the same one every time, because there was like a skeleton hand under the spine of the book, and then one kind of flipped open.
I was delightful. It was very much like I could. If you were to cut to the person with the arms, no doubt it would be like an overweight dude with a mustache smoking a cigarette with these two like skeleton arms, moving, just like waiting for this to be over.
It was very good.
It was very good. Yeah. So bring that up because we cut to in the basement. There's the skeleton of Matthew Mall. And Vincent Price with a pickaxe, he like pulls at his arm, and there's like a sheet of paper that like tells him how the location of the treasure, where it was actually behind that bleeding portrait. And so then Vincent Price and his sister are like, well, we now know where the treasure is.
Yeah, and I'm remembering now, but there was something about the blood on the lips.
Yes.
Which was, I mean, I've heard blood, there's blood on the hands. It was a very strange, and maybe it was taken directly from the story, but blood on the lips is such a weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why they went that route.
There's like, because there's a scene too, and I guess it would be like a red herring in which Alice sees Matthew Mall, the ghost of Matthew Mall, out by the well. And then she's told by the sister that that the well used to be the place of the blacksmith, like where he was a blacksmith. And for me, I'm like, well, the treasure's down there.
Yes, I agree.
And it's not. It's behind a portrait in the house.
And the ghost turned into Matthew Mall,
turned into the other Mall.
The other Mall, yeah.
John Mall. or Jonathan Mall.
Yep.
And then also another great scene, got to bring it up. John, so she goes, confronts the ghost out by the well, and then the ghost disappears. John Mall comes up, and then he kind of professes his love for her. Cut to the right of that, Vincent Price is in the window listening it.
He does a lot of listening.
He does. And then he's just like, oh, you're talking to my wife. And then his sister interrupts, and Vincent, she's like, what are you going to do? Like kill him? And Vincent Price is like, yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yes, I am. Thank you for the idea. Regardless, they find where the treasure is going to be. The sister says, well, I will just share in the wealth with you because the curse says that you're the one who's doomed to die. Before you find the treasure, when you find the treasure, whatever. So I'll just share in the wealth because I'm not going to die. That's, like if you live. And he's like, yeah, I agree. And then he takes a pickaxe and he just hits her right in the head with it. And it's interesting if you see the way it's cut. He hits her in the forehead with the pickaxe, and then it does a cut. And when it's reframed over the shoulder of Vincent Price, and her back is turned toward the camera. And then she falls down and dies. Alice witnesses this. And then they go back up to the room. He moves the portrait, and by gosh, a little skeleton arm comes through the portrait and starts choking him. And it's so good.
It is.
It's so good. And again, I can just see the guy with a mustache smoking a cigarette with the two little arms choking Vincent Price in his chair. And then wonderfully, once Vincent Price is dead, the house is crumbling. It's got that like what do you just very thematic ending where the house is like falling apart. It's the fall of the House of Usher. It's Haunted Palace. It's all that stuff.
Many.
As house is falling apart, it shows Vincent Price. He's dead in the chair. I think there's some blood on his lips. And then it cuts to the portrait, and you see the little skeleton arms are going back into the from behind the portrait. You can just see them. It looks so bad, but great, but very charming. And then
it couldn't have been scary for the time.
That couldn't have been scary.
I mean,
who was in the audience like, oh,
it's too much. I have to leave.
Do you think people were laughing?
I don't know. I mean, it's 1963.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that people are like, oh, it's too disturbing.
We can't show the, well, who knows? Maybe it was like, there was like sinew and blood all over the skeletal arms. And then you're like, they were like, we can't show that. So I picked these two up over at the Halloween USA.
1963.
Yeah. And that's the end. The house crumbles, curses over. And then Twice Told Tales is done for. You have your kind of thematic ending. I was hoping it would cut to the closing of the book by the skeleton arms, but it didn't happen. And then maybe like a cut to the skeleton sitting behind a table with all the books.
Or it would have been even better to just cut after the arms came through the wall, just cut to the other side of the wall, and he's like waving.
The skeleton's listening in from a window.
He's got the book in the other hand.
It could have been like it cut to the skeleton and he just said something like, well, I guess he didn't have a backbone. I don't know. Something really stupid like that would be funny. No bones about it as the house is falling apart. Yeah, that's the end. Do you have anything you'd like to add to The House of Seven Gables?
This was the weakest one for me. It was, I had a hard time sticking with it. It just, it was,
we should build on that at the just very third segment. Let's just talk about how we felt about each segment.
Okay.
But anything you wanted to add as far as like, I don't know, just bits and pieces?
Like I said, the thing that stuck out the most to me was the curse and the blood on the lips. It's just, like I've seen movies where the eyes in the pictures bleed.
Yeah.
There's blood on the hands. Blood on the lips is just, it's remarkable because it's so weird. It's weird. I don't know.
That's it
wasn't a vampire story either.
Yeah, no, it seemed like it. And I guess,
should have been the well, should have been a vampire. I don't know.
And there should have been a skeleton
hands.
And there should have been a skeleton at the end to make some lame pun and see the movie out. That's the
Maybe a vampire with skeleton hands.
Can you, also 1960s, the skeleton makes the pun and the audience starts screaming with fright. Oh well. Okay. So that's the end of this segment. When we come back, we're going to do a 5-question true or false trivia game with Adam as the guesser, as the true and false guesser. The contestant to this this game. Yeah. And then we will kind of just summarize and tell our final thoughts and feelings on Twice Told Tales. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Forgotten Frights. I'm Josh, and I'm sitting here with Adam.
Hey.
And we are going to do a 5-question true or false trivia game about Twice Told Tales. And hopefully it enlightens listeners to some of the behind-the-scenes information of the movie. Or maybe shed some light on, I don't know, some things you didn't know about Vincent Price. Adam, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's start with question one. Question one, these are all true and false. Beverly Garland claimed that she saw Vincent Price eyeing furniture during filming and that some of the furniture disappeared after filming wrapped.
That seems true.
Okay. Allegedly, this is true. I pulled it from IMDb,
That's
so
great.
take it with a grain of salt. But apparently, Vincent Price was a chef, but he was a connoisseur of fine art and furniture.
And a klepto.
So I guess allegedly he was stealing chairs and putting them.
He's not even paying people to do it.
And I hope he's driving his station wagon from The Last Man on Earth, and he's just loading in old chairs.
It's got a big fainting couch on the top of it, tied down.
Now that's a Diaz. All right, number 2. Vincent Price starred in another version of The House of Seven Gables.
I will say true.
That is true. There was a previous version which was released in 1940. I actually should have looked that up to see if that is true, but from a couple of different sources said there was an earlier version that he starred in, and then was like, yeah, I also want to do this version.
20 years prior. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
he said 1940, which...
Damn.
Knowing that, like, the source material departed, I wonder if was Vincent Price at any point like, this is not how the story goes. But I guess not. He was too busy eyeing the furniture.
He's like, I'm not in unless there's skeleton hands.
Maybe he was controlling the skeleton hands. I would not put smoking a cigarette. All right. Question 3. Twice Told Tales had a high budget for its time, making it one of the most expensive anthology films ever produced.
False.
That you are correct. I don't want to say that's true that you said it was false, because now we're getting into some confusing territory. But yes, that is false. It had a modest budget and also had low cost production typical of many anthology movies of that era. I mean, skeleton arms, Adam.
Well, skeleton arms, yeah, but like even Rappaccini's daughter, like the garden area looked absolutely like a stage, a sound stage.
Yeah.
The window, which Giovanni was talking to Beatrice, there was
Ground
nothing.
floor.
Yeah, it didn't look like there was brick or anything. It looked like plywood. Yeah.
With that being said, we'll get to it. But I was going to say, I actually was quite, not quite as smitten, like with Black Sabbath, but I'll get to it. It's fine. Number 4. The film score was composed by famous film composer Bernard Herrmann.
Well, it's a big name. I'm going to say no. False. Excuse me.
Correct. It was false. The film's music was composed by David Raskin. Herrmann was known for composing the score for the film Psycho, amongst others, but that was kind of his claim to fame. David Raskin, Twice Told Tales. And I'm sure he did more. David Raskin's name looks vaguely familiar. All right, question 5. You are at 4 out of 5 right now for questions.
Nice.
Question 5. Twice Told Tales was based on a collection of short stories by Nathaniel Hawthorne.
It was based on stories by Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Twice Told Tales was based on a collection of short stories.
I'm going to say true.
That is false.
Oh.
So both Dr. Heidegger's experiment and Rappaccini's daughter were featured in the collection Twice Told Tales, but The House of Seven Gables was its own book.
Oh, Interesting.
So, I thought The House of Seven Gables was I thought it was all in Twice Told Tales, but apparently, I don't know why they couldn't pull another one from the collection. And they were like, yeah, let's do House of Seven Gables again.
Right.
And Vincent Price was like, great idea.
2 short stories and a whole ass novel.
Which it seems like the first story seemed very long. It seemed like The House of Seven Gables wasn't as long as, say, even like Dr. Heidegger's experiment. You know what I mean? Just kind of in...
I don't know. I feel like that, again, I don't want... We'll talk about it in a minute.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's it for the trivia game. I don't know, this is episode 3 of Forgotten Frights. We're still figuring out format. Do we even need to take a break, or should we just go right into our thoughts and feelings?
I think we should just go right into
our thoughts and feelings. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to start out? I just have it broken down into likes and dislikes.
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of have an overview, just overall for the whole movie. I'm a huge fan of horror anthology movies. I really like how quickly they move along. And honestly, with all the Amicus anthologies, I couldn't tell you all of the stories that are like in Tales from the Crypt or Asylum, but I just know when I start watching those movies, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one that has that one.
Yeah,
they're very comfort foody, as far as movies for me. This one, I just feel like it was overly melodramatic. It was slow. Not that I need, crazy kills or anything like that, but it's just there. It really did feel like it drug on. And maybe the fact that the first one was a little longer, the first segment, the second one moved along a little faster, but maybe the fact that first one was seemed a little longer made that third one just almost intolerable. It was very long, and there wasn't anything new where I'm like, oh, okay, this is really keeping my attention. I feel like a lot of times when, at least I assume when they're building these anthologies, they're going to keep the last one to be a little bit more juicy, like I think of Trilogy of Terror with Karen Black, where the first two stories are good, but then the third one it's her versus that doll in the apartment. I don't know if you but it's like, okay, this is the meat of the matter, this is the reason to watch the movie, this is the best story. The House of the Seven Gables, it was more like 17 Gables. It went on for a while. So I feel like Vincent Price and Sebastian Cabot working together was great. I think Vincent Price listening in on people. I mean, I'd watch the movie again just to watch him listen in and eavesdrop on people in a malicious way. Yeah, but for the most part, the movie it was a slower watch for sure.
Yeah, I think certainly this movie needs some kind of what do they call those? Like a quick cut of just all the people eavesdropping, like just do a super cut of nice. Just different eavesdropping moments. Yeah, I don't. So what I put for love the sets. I actually thought I was charmed by the sets. I'm a big fan of the original series of Star Trek. So and part of that is because I find it to be very charming, and I find it to be very the low budget makes it. I don't know, just kind of fun to watch and see what they can do with, the more is less idea. And you really got me into watching anthologies. And what I've noticed outside of Black Sabbath, because I think Black Sabbath had some of the coolest production, most like inventive, imaginative, creative production for a low budget film, certainly. From Boris Karloff riding a horse. And I don't know if you've ever seen that video, but it's Boris Karloff kind of like riding a horse in front of a like a tarp with the background are like trees and things that are moving on. I don't know if it's moving on a kind of a rail system, but then to get trees into the foreground, they have guys holding trees up and they're just running in a circle around the camera. And then he's riding the horse, if that makes sense. So it looks like he's riding by trees because they're just running. Wow. Yeah. So it just
was easier than
I guess. But the other thing is like is it ends up being like Bram Stoker's Dracula, in which they have like a miniature train with like a dialed in backdrop, and they're kind of like showing it move through, the hills of whatever. What am I thinking of? Carpathian Mountains. Yeah. That sort of thing. So, it's like imaginative and creative. Now, does Twice Told Tales do anything like that? Not really. I think, you're right in that when you look at Dr. Heidegger's experiments, it's what, two sets? It's a house that has two rooms, and then you have a crypt that they move through very quickly. And then Rappaccini's Daughter is what? It's like a one room where there's some vials and things, and then the garden. And then you have the House of Seven Gables that is like a backyard. A house that's probably just the same one from Dr. Heidegger's experiments. So it's not really, and there's nothing like incredible about this. They're not doing anything with the colors. But I still felt, I felt like they were getting some use out of those sets. With Rappaccini's Daughter, I actually thought the garden looked kind of cool. And I like that the way that they had designed it. There's like there were like stone columns out there with like, whatever, plants hanging from them, and then just the weird bush. I think they tried to make it actually look
And
interesting in that way.
Don't get me wrong. I think the question that you asked was, this was one of the more expensive movies to make.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought that the sets looked fine. It was just more that when you asked that question, I'm like, there's no way they spent a lot of money on this. Like, it was very clear.
And I don't want it to sound like I'm like, wow, this is so amazing. It's because it looks cheap. It's charming to me. And therefore I get that. And there are so many of these older movies that look so bad that they just are. It's very clear that they've got a set from a TV show. They're filming for a movie and they don't even care to dress it up. So I think at least and this, it would be funny if that's actually what happened with this movie, but it's still, I think there's some kind of like, it looks like, they kind of cared. At least they made an attempt, I should say.
I know that a lot of the 50s and 60s sci-fi movies were, like the Twilight Zone series used a lot of those sets. Like a lot of these movies and TV shows of the time just kept reusing all of these sets. I think that's charming as hell too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, especially if you can, as a movie fanatic, you can actually pick it out like, oh, that was from Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think that's cool. With that being said, low cost production shows, I think in the moments where it could have been really cool, I think, having Sebastian Cabot in the mirror and Cabot, de-aging, I think that was interesting. But I think it just, while I think some of the sets are interesting, there is kind of like, you can tell there was like, they could have tried a little bit harder. Yeah. I mean, just considering with like Black Sabbath and Haunted Palace, even, I'll give it to them. There's like atmosphere, and there's just not really atmosphere to this movie. It's very, like you said, it's very like set heavy.
Yeah.
It's like, here's that. And it's all shot in like noon time. Everything is just very like broad daylight, It's not, I didn't get a lot of feels.
Wasn't a lot of fog.
Yeah.
There wasn't, the Sebastian Cabot transformation scenes reminded me a lot of like, 20, I guess it would have been 20 or 25 years prior to like the Wolfman,
Yeah.
It felt like, there was just that static shot in the mirror.
Yeah.
And it was just like slowly putting on, taking less and less of the white makeup off.
Yeah.
Which again, I think that's charming, but for 25 years later, I mean, for them not to think, oh, okay, maybe we'll try something different.
We need to do, whether we want to do like the Wolfman, which I don't know that I've ever seen the full movie, but we should do like a Wolfman movie from around that time, whether we do like a sequel or Frankenstein.
Hammer Wolfman films.
Oh, that'd be cool too.
Yeah.
I watched a really bad Italian one.
Let's watch that one
some years ago. Oh God, it was so bad. The Wolfman, the noise he made was like, it was like frustrated. It just sounded like a frustrated man. It was so strange. And he gets electrocuted, and he's kind of like a pudgier Italian guy too, with just like, it looked like he had like big sideburns, and that was like it. Let's not do that one. And that was probably just called like the horror of the Wolfman, the terror
or the mummy's claw. It's like, what? There's a Wolfman in this.
Yeah, it was called Dracula versus the Mummy, and it was just the Wolfman. They messed it up. So last question: does this film deserve to be forgotten?
It's probably a hot take, especially with Vincent Price and how much I really do like his movies and his whole no, I'm going to change my mind. If you just watch it for him eavesdropping on people, it's worth it. Especially the second story, Rappaccini's daughter. He's got like the devilish pointed beard.
Yeah.
I think he's supposed to be playing, he's playing Italian or Spanish. Yeah, it's like it's very lazily done.
Let's be honest.
But he's very much like, I'm not a bad person. It's like he's totally a bad person. He's a bad guy.
I mean, even Giovanni's like, hey guys, like they're like the most American people.
Yeah. So I mean, but look, there's probably a total of 2.5 minutes of eavesdropping in this movie. But then you've got almost 2 hours aside from that where you have to just commit to trying to follow.
Yeah, that's fair. I got to go like in between on this one. I think, am I going to go recommend this film to people? No, probably not. So in that way, it should be forgotten because there's a lot better anthologies. They're just, go see Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yep.
Don't wait. That is just, it just like leaps and bounds, over this movie. With that being said, if you do like low budget, charming films, I would imagine you're listening to this podcast for that reason, or you're incredibly bored. But if you like Vincent Price and you like kind of low budget, but charming, and at least I would say interesting stories, I still think about Dr. Heidegger's Experiment and just kind of, mostly like I ask it questions in my head and say, why did that
Think
happen?
about all the plot holes.
Yes. And then The House of Seven Gables. The skeleton arms alone for me, price of admission.
I just wish they would have been in the beginning of the story.
Just at very beginning.
Yep. Maybe just placed, beginning, middle, and end. Just, you
should have
really like keep your eyes open to see it.
When they go into the crypt to take the lid off,
Mm-hmm.
it should have like smash cut to two skeleton arms removing the crypt. Don't address it at all. You just have the skeleton arms lift the crypt, or the coffin itself. And that would have made for a much, much more interesting film, I think, overall.
Yep.
With that being said, do you have anything to add before we close out?
No.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to Forgotten Frights. Stay tuned. We'll be publishing some more, and I have some older episodes from different podcasts that Adam and I have talked about horror movies on that I'll be republishing for the purposes of this podcast. Mostly I just don't want to lose the conversations or have them just sit and collect dust, because I think we had, especially The Last Man on Earth, I think we had a great conversation on that movie, and I think we just need to repurpose some of those. So with that being said, stay tuned, and good night and good fright.
Bye.